It is Gate Sunday, Rejoice Sunday. That's why we light the special candle on the Advent wreath. That's why I get to wear these beautiful vestments that only get worn twice a year. It is to rejoice because we're remembering that Christmas is just a week or so away. And of course it fits our Advent theme, this idea that, hey, yeah, we are looking at this idea of rejoicing. But I thought it might be helpful to us to, if you will, compare rejoicing in a secular sense, if you will, versus rejoicing in a religious one. So if you allow me an example that this isn't your example, I'm sure you could understand it. Take a football fan, specifically a college football fan, and they're rejoicing. So what's that look like in their head, if you will? Well, assuming that they are following their team, that the one they like, their team is one that has one of those storied histories of great successes over the years, they can rejoice in that. They have a bad season, they can think of other seasons where they have won championships and done very well. They certainly can be rejoicing in the moment. So right now, some of you may know that the college football organizations, they've started a new playoff schedule, or format, I should say, and so they might be rejoicing that their team has made it to the playoffs this year, and that's a wonderful thing. And then, of course, they could look to the future and be thinking about rejoicing in the sense that, yeah, there's a chance. We got a chance this year. We might win the championship this year. What about our faith? Interesting enough, it's similar. The Bible, lots and lots of passages throughout the Old Testament that are constantly trying to get the people to be reminded of what has taken place in the past. Some of you may remember a passage in the book of Hebrews where the writer goes through a big, long list of all the people of faith. We're being reminded that, hey, yeah, these are the good things that God has done for us. The most common one in the Old Testament, the people were always being reminded of the time when God sent Moses and got them out of slavery, out of Egypt, and brought them and gave them the promised land. That was just an amazing thing. And the people are called to remember that, to rejoice in that. Certainly, I hope, there are times when you can rejoice in the present. Perhaps just maybe the best example would be maybe last Wednesday night. Perhaps you were here at the penance service and were able to take advantage of that. Maybe you walked away from here feeling in a special way, wow, God did forgive my sins. And so that's something to rejoice about in the present. And then in the future, last week we looked at this idea of rejoicing because God keeps his promises. Well, those promises await us. All those things we talked about last week, but most especially in the season of Advent, God promises us not only that his Son will come as we celebrate Christmas, but also the second coming, and that we are promised resurrection after our death. That great promise there. So they're very similar, the way we approach rejoicing in, if you will, our day-to-day lives and the way we approach rejoicing in our faith. But there are a couple differences that are important. Maybe the biggest one has to do with, as we look to the future, that football fan I mentioned to you, they really don't have anything to hold on to, if you will. In other words, it's mostly hope, optimism. Maybe, I hope my team will win the championship this year, but there's no guarantee that that is what is going to happen. None whatsoever. Undoubtedly, the fan would remember times when his team upset better teams, and he knows it could happen to his team as well. And so, in a secular sense, the things that we are looking forward to in the future, they're not guaranteed. They are just simply hopes and like, well, maybe. but all the things in our faith that we look forward to, that we can rejoice at, oh, those things, they're going to happen. There's no doubt about that. They will happen. The second coming will happen. Maybe not in our lifetime. That is up for the Lord to decide, but it's going to happen. And all the other things many that we talked about last week, they're all going to happen. And so that makes faith, if you will, or I should say rejoicing in a sense of our faith, just a little different than it is when we hope and rejoice in secular things. Or if you want to look at it a different way, think of it in terms of a foundation. Many of you might remember that at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus tells this little story. He says, people that listen to me and do what I tell them to do, they're going to be like someone who built a house on rock. They laid a firm foundation and they built the house, and then when the storm came and the winds blew, the house stood firm. But someone who built their house on sand, and that was their foundation, they're going to be like someone who does not listen to Jesus' words, and the winds will come and the floods will come and the house will be ruined. Think about that in terms of this football fan. What if that's the only thing they have in their life? Or I should say things like that. So they rejoice in their sports teams. Maybe they rejoice in wonderful relationships. Maybe they rejoice in wonderful vacations, things like that. But if that's it, all that stuff can be taken away. Just the odd storm, or certainly people disappoint us all the time. It's very possible that foundation that is built there is pretty flimsy, because we could find ourselves suddenly, I've lost it all, so to speak. But consider your faith. Consider that foundation, that's always going to be there. And then, yes, if on top of that foundation of I can rejoice in the Lord and I can rejoice in my faith, and then on top of that, I do indeed get to enjoy my hobbies, and I get to enjoy relationships, and I get to enjoy successes in my life. Well, if by chance that is taken away, or some of it is taken away, what are you left with? You still have this firm foundation of your faith. And that is the thing that we really can rejoice about today. We can rejoice in that foundation that not everybody has. So many people in our society, they're looking for something. They're trying to build a foundation, but they're building it on the wrong thing. In fairness to them, it looks pretty good. It looks good to them. It looks like, oh, this will be fine. The person that I exchanged vows with, oh, they'll never do anything wrong. They'll never hurt me in any way. I wish that were true, but it's not. Those building our lives on that kind of foundation, looking for happiness, looking for rejoicing in all these worldly things, it's never going to work. And so we have a chance to say, no, let me first build my faith on my rejoicing, my hope, my faith. Let me build that on the Lord on Christmas. And then, after that, I'll enjoy all the rest. Jesus summarized it very well. Seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will come after that.